So I seldom talk about China with my close friends because they know eventually we will argue.
This is an innocent party going all over the world to help other countries, provide independence, freedom for the people in China, the Uyghur at Xinjiang.
WeChat was the first app that I installed in my phone. And then from there, you get exposed to more applications made in Chinese.
I'm a 34-year-old second-generation Chinese Singaporean. Like me, these men were born and bred in Singapore. At the same time, as they tell me, China has captured their imagination like never before.
I follow this lady, Hua Chuning. I thought she's very cool the way she responds. Sometimes very funny.
Michael Chan sees himself as an educator, and part of that includes educating people about China on forums such as Quora.
My background as a teacher, I will want to teach. So when I see things that, for example, betrays critical thinking processes, I will respond.
In his own pursuit of truth, Michael strives to take in all perspectives, including from official sources.
I find her way of talking very interesting, and sometimes she's humorous as well.
他当中还讲了一个例子，因为我看了好几遍，他就点到了2个媒体，一个是美国的，一个是英国的。
She's starting to smile.
我可以给留点面子，大家可以一起看。
So she's actually even teasing. I'm giving you some face, huh?
Is it, everything about her, or specifically when she shoots down or rebuts Western media that interests you?
I find the way she does it to be very cool.
In a 2021 poll, Singaporeans were the only ones to view China more favourably than the US. This stands out from the rest of the Asia Pacific, where you have 3/4 seeing China in a negative light. That same year, a French think tank report identified Singapore as a natural target for Chinese influence. I next met Rodney Tan. For most of his life, he was a banana, someone who looks Chinese but cannot speak the language.
When I was in school from the 50s, right, Chinese in China was not something that we look forward to, right? We associate of them with communists being bad, etc., right? The American music, watching American movie, seeing how the cowboys, the heroes fought and won battles has made us so proud of America.
But in the last decade or so, as Rodney visited China and the US, his impression of both countries changed dramatically.
When I sat on the fast-speed train, when I arrived in Shanghai, can you imagine watching the speedometer of the train going at 300 kilometers per hour, and I didn't even feel the train rattle? You can't help but to admire that technology. When I went to the US, you sit in the Amtrak, you can't help but to shake your head. What has gone wrong? Over the last couple of years, I thought to myself, especially during the Trump era, why are they taking this attitude of, wanting to thumb China down? It is a very sad thing, right? The train cannot be stopped. I think I will live long enough to see China being number one, right?
China's rise also includes the expansion of its soft power.
On Xiaohongshu, they call this the Wanghongsu. And they come here to Dhaka. So it was from one of the apps on Xiaohongshu, then we realized that this is actually a tray made out of iron rods. TikTok got into my attention about 3-4 years ago. It started to become very hot on Chinese media with the Chinese community. When I was sharing the content with my American counterparts and European counterparts, they couldn't understand what was fun for it, but it took over the world by storm.
Ming Hui's love affair with China and Chinese culture accelerated when he met China-born academic Gong Xue in 2011. They got married in 2013.
I think immediately we could establish a connection between myself and her. I think one of the key reasons was because I could speak Mandarin quite fluently.
China's growing power has also led to one of the biggest challenges of the 21st century, a multi-dimensional contest between China and the United States, with both sides ramping up influence operations. This spills into Singapore, with its majority Chinese population, and where Singaporeans have gone online to air concerns about their fathers being self-radicalized by China's political propaganda. As a businessman with an interest in China, Michael knows that he's susceptible.
The way I look at Singapore's market is very small. Me, I'm in education, for example. There's actually very little space for me here. Whereas in China, there's, I still get calls from headhunters every 1 to 2 to 3 months. Right? That's why people like me, in a way, are in a dangerous position. Okay, because we are much more easily swayed. I'm a community volunteer, and the government has been very specific in such things, telling us be careful of foreign influencers who may try to influence you by supporting your activities.
So you would couch it as being aware of these influence campaigns and that they're out there, but you are making a conscious effort in a way.
And it is something also I want my children to think about, not just my children, even my students. Be thinking that how are they trying to influence me? I would say there's a spectrum, okay, between the 100% pro-China to the 100% anti-China. I would say I'm probably somewhere at the 70, okay, maybe even 80.
Towards China, obviously.
Towards China. But at the same time, I always say first thing, I'm Singaporean. Although I'm pro-China, okay, I take it from the point of view of somebody who's looking from the outside. I'm always an outsider. The best they treat me is 远亲, a relative but not a close relative.
They keep on harping the same thing that they are very cruel to the people, etc. I say, when you have a chance, take a holiday to China and see for yourself. Then you will be able to come back and comment intelligently.
Almost sounds like you're defending China.
Yeah, it seems so. Yeah. Right? All I need to do is one guy who believes me, right? And it helps. Right? Otherwise, it's a miserable world. Like I've got an American colleague of mine. Whenever I read something about an American who says fair comment of China, I forward to him, because I don't use a Chinese who speak well of China to forward to him. He might perceive it as a propaganda.
You use the word propaganda, so I take it you're aware that there will be other people coming in to comment and very aggressively defending China to the point of promotion.
There will be people who are being paid to do that. Let's not be naive, right? And there are people who believe on their own accord, post and make comments of this sort.
And I think even Xi Jinping himself has ever mentioned before that this concept of Huaqiao, the idea that overseas Chinese are also
part
Chinese,
of China. Yeah. As long as it doesn't compromise Singapore, it's okay.
Understanding them helps me to put myself in their shoes, to see when there are tensions between US and China. You are able to see why the Chinese may feel very indignant, or they feel that they are being bullied.
Do you identify more as Chinese or as Singaporean?
I think it's always a very delicate balance, whether I position myself as a Singaporean or a Chinese. But I would always acknowledge myself as a Singaporean first. Why? Because my family is here, my career is here.
I also asked the men to respond to the French report, which listed the key narratives being propagated by China in Singapore.
Singapore is a Chinese country that is part and should be loyal to Greater China. That's what has been commented.
How do you feel?
I disagree totally. I disagree totally. We've lived here for so long, right? Even though I'm a Chinese, there are some things that we got to draw a line, right? and we cannot be subjected to any nation, let alone China, telling us what to do. We will lose our credibility.
Singapore is a small country which cannot afford to be arrogant and alienate the Chinese giant. I agree that Singapore is a small country. Definitely we should not be arrogant. I think Singapore has done a good job in balancing the greater political scene. We do not want to alienate the Chinese giant, neither do we want to alienate the greater nations of the Western society as well.
Singapore is too close to the US when the US is the past and China is the future. It's in Singapore's interest to align with Beijing. I would say that the first part is still relatively true. Singapore generally is still closer to the US. But whether it's in Singapore's interest to align with Beijing, no. Singapore's interests will always be Singapore's first.
Rodney's great-grandfather Tan Kim Tian set sail from Shanyang in China. He came to Singapore and founded the first company to build steamships. A road in Tiong Bahru is named after him. His son Hap Seng founded several Peranakan clubs and associations. Their stories began in China, but their contributions to Singapore, their rootedness here, these contain the core message that Rodney wants his children and grandchildren to never forget, that one may be pro-China or pro-US, but being pro-Singapore comes first.
You've also taken a rather somewhat more recent interest in tracing your roots. Can you tell us a bit more in terms of why?
Well, Frank, I felt there was a degree of emptiness. I don't know the names of my grandmothers and my great-grandmothers. I only know how to call them Ama, Atai. Not being it's really horrible. Now even I take a picture and ask friends to help me.
In these times, the global race to seed and entrench narratives, to influence and shape opinions is red hot. China does it, as does the West. As a young country, Singapore's identity is still malleable, and as tensions run high, some may continue to question where pro-China Singaporeans such as Ming Hui, Michael, and Rodney stand. But we're on good footing when Singaporeans like them understand the need to be grounded in Singapore's realities and to reflect Singapore's interests, not anyone else's.